The list we just went over is insufficient by itself to provide a complete understanding of America's pandemic laws. The most important of all these laws is the Trump administration's executive order from 2018 entitled National Biodefense Strategy and its accompanying National Security Presidential Memorandum 14, the Presidential Memorandum on the Support for National Biodefense. I'll call this the strategy. The strategy is remarkable because of what it said and what it didn't do. This is what it said. This strategy, quote, brings together and puts in place for the first time a single coordinated effort to protect the American people from biological threats, period, end quote. This strategy superseded and replaced, end quote, earlier laws. In my entire review of Homeland Security laws, I have not seen another law of any kind that repealed and replaced previous ones. In the strategy, the word biosurveillance is mentioned 22 times. The strategy recognized, quote, biological threats among the most serious threats facing the United States and the international community, can cause catastrophic harm, death, sicken, and disable on a massive scale, psychological trauma, and economic and social disruption, originate in one country and spread to many others. Every word that the strategy recognized did in fact happen. The strategy required, and these are all quotations again, PPE, stockpiles, testing, to use the Defense Production Act, to ensure the safety, security, and reliability of supply chains, to improve federal messaging to provide clear, consistent, and coordinated information. Every word that the strategy required and we didn't have, we did in fact need. This is what the strategy didn't do. The strategy was important. It had the words national security in the title. Tragically, the strategy was never implemented. As a March 2020 GAO report indicates, the strategy did not even get to step 1 of its implementation plan. The two documents that make up the strategy have very long names, but not so many words. I encourage you to read them to learn what could have been. It's a law written in English. The words mean what they say. This indicates violations by the executive branch at the highest levels, but it also indicates a legislative branch failure. Congress drafted good laws and then ignored them. They could have done something. Unresolved, I cannot resolve whether the 2018 strategy is solely responsible for America's initial poor response to COVID-19 and the lingering after effects of this. After all, America has been planning for pandemics since 2002. What happened to the PPE, masks, etc., required pursuant to the George Bush pandemic plan or the Barack Obama pandemic plan? I don't know what happened, but it does not matter. And this is why it doesn't matter. The 2018 strategy repealed and replaced the two previous pandemic plans. It took complete and unequivocal control of and responsibility for America's pandemic response. It said, quote, it brings together and puts in place for the first time a single coordinated effort to protect the American people from biological threats, period, end quote. Those words are astounding. They are a promise to the American people. To finish up, the Biden administration's September 21 pandemic plan seems to ignore the existence of pandemic laws. Nothing in this plan is new. Everything in this plan is already the subject of federal law. The critical difference, of course, is that the Biden plan is being fully and vigorously implemented. On page 4, the Biden plan discusses the need for a centralized, quote, mission control. Mission control already exists. Responsibility for most pandemic plans falls on Health and Human Services. HHS has been mission control since 2002. That first law I mentioned to you about from 2002 says HHS is mission control. And more recently, the PHEMC, which was itself directed at HHS. On page 12, the Biden plan discusses situational awareness. We already have situational awareness. It's called biosurveillance. It has been the subject of federal law since 2002, and again, that 2002 law I mentioned it. the National Health Security Strategy and Implementation Plan 2019-2022 also says HHS is in charge. In an ideal world, the 2018 strategy would have been implemented, or the 2009 or the 2004 pandemic plans would not have been deleted. Our challenge, your challenge, is to do what we can when the coordinating functions the federal government, or HHS, is supposed to do. If the feds don't do it, then we're on our own to do it. We can't help with the supplies, but we can help with the coordinating functions. If we're on our own, federal law is often a good place to start to see what needs to be done or how to do it, because some of these federal laws are brilliant. I'm amazed at how they knew what needed to be done way back when they drafted it. In some respects, we have to keep on doing what you've been doing, which is developing and strengthening ties between yourselves, physicians, hospitals, and public health departments, and developing mechanisms for sharing information and best practices. If the Trump administration plan had been implemented, our response to COVID-19 could have been almost routine. We would have achieved that elusive ethical balance between individual liberties and public security that Griffin Trotter talks about. Another scholar said COVID-19 could have had a very different trajectory, one where nominal interference with personal liberties would have been imposed in exchange for keeping folks alive. End quote. I have more detail about executive orders in the reading materials which I've submitted. Essentially, every single person who writes about, every single scholar that writes about executive orders says they're enforceable. What to do moving forward from here? You guys have done an awesome job. Keep on doing what you've been doing. They say we need new laws. I say we already have wonderful laws. Just don't ignore them. Identify them and use them. Lives will be saved. And I can't go on without making a comment about Congress. They drafted most of these laws. Do not let partisanship get in the way of saving lives. If the executive branch doesn't do something, make noise. And I know that they can do that well. Thank you. I look forward to questions.